Good evening and welcome to the Front Runner Football Podcast. The name is Gamzambata. Thank you once again for joining us as we dissect all the big news stories in the cycle as far as what's happening here in our country, of course. And of course, in the last week, we're now casting our eye into the rest of Africa to discuss what's been happening there. Of course, the big news being the appointment of Coach Pitso to the head coaching position at Ahly. And of course, he's dragged about 3 South Africans with him, the latest of which being Cavin Johnson to join him as his assistant coach. That also has ramifications, of course, as far as his previous club is concerned, in the fact that now there's been an announcement that Manqoba and Rulani Manqoba will be joint head coaches of the Brazilians going into the new season. Much to munch on, including the launch of the Bafana Bafana jersey. We'll discuss that for a little bit. I'm joined by none other than Rob Delport and Velile Mnyandu right here on the waves as we beam live to YouTube. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me this evening. Much has happened, signings left, right and center, new coaches, new players, but of course the historic news, Rob, of Pitso Moseman's ascent to pretty much what is the top job it must be in African club football, recently unveiled as the head coach of Ahly. What are your remarks on that one?
Oh, I'm personally really overjoyed by it. I mean, it's crazy that last week we were talking about who Pitso is going to be playing in the Sundowns team, and here we are talking about him as Ahly coach. As much as I always want to see South African players excel internationally, I really have always wanted to see South African coaches, and Pitso is head of the class. You know, let's be frank. If Pitso was a white European, he would have probably had 1,000 jobs by now. It's a different story for Africans, and especially us here, where we are kind of out of sight, out of mind from the rest of the world. And that's not going to be the case anymore. I don't know how it was with Velile, but this past week, I've had more Egyptian people speaking to me than ever before. I had messages nonstop asking me about Pitso, asking me about the assistants, wanting to do TV crossovers at 1:30 in the morning. They're football mad over there, and hopefully they become Pitso mad as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I'm sure, Velile, you were front and center. I remember there was a video that we dropped on the Front Runner YouTube of you speaking to an Egyptian colleague. It's just been fever pitch. And, you know, it doesn't hurt that he's made a good start to life as well, getting a victory on his first game. But you can just sense this excitement is so palpable to have this coach. And it's very rare, and it's been a long time since we've seen the rest of Africa be so excited about a South African bid.
I think it's safe to say that last week, Gamza, you will agree with me. I made a comment here, and I said, those who are not, or those who are giving head coach, Coach Pitso a tough time, yes. You know, they will remember a good thing when it's gone, you know. And yes, I did say that, and nothing had came out by then. But sometimes that's how you have to keep it. You have to keep things like that, to manage people's information. And because at that time, we already knew that the negotiations were going on, having started on Friday or Saturday. And remember the Saturday, that's when the Sundowns fans, they were celebrating him in Soweto. But and I think by that time a lot was happening behind the scenes. But as I'm saying again, we have to manage information. And I think as a South African, I'm very happy that this deal has gone through. You know, I think the only blemish for me, especially after seeing the statement from the president of the country, celebrating Pitso, because you must understand that last year Egypt had the chairmanship of the African Union. This year the chairmanship of the African Union is here in South Africa, and our president is the chairman of the AU this year. It's disappointing that we've had the president of the country releasing a statement praising Pitso, and also thanking Ahly for making this big move. But from the South African Football Association, nothing. We are still waiting for a statement, almost a week later.
Sure.
For me, this is really shocking, especially when this is one of their products, who has been taken by, not arguably, by the biggest club on the continent, the club of the century, and here's someone who is your product. His qualifications that make him to be at this level, they are your qualifications, and also as the association, you've invested such a lot of money to make him the top coach that he is now, as an assistant, going to the biggest tournament in the world, the World Cup, and as a head coach as well. And you don't even release a statement just to celebrate this big achievement for South African football.
What is that down to? Why do you think that is? It can't be an oversight. It's been in the news cycle too much for it to an oversight.
No. I mean, sometimes we release statements for some things that are not really even serious. But on this one, you can't say you've missed it. And I'm saying to you, it's been more than 48 hours. The president of the country has released a statement. And as the FA, here is your ambassador. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Here is your ambassador. Here is someone who is the product of your coaching education. So this is really disappointing for me.
It is bizarre.
Especially we're talking about Coach Pitso being the first African coach from outside Egypt to coach Ahly. Record 8-time African champions. Record 42 times Egyptian champions. Yeah, but because this thing is not sending a good message about the ambassadors. It's not sending a good message, especially when this move is being celebrated by footballing people from outside this continent. In fact, from outside this country.
No, for sure. Rob, I mean, it's strange because the Safa never missed the opportunity to put out a statement. You would say, I mean, they're very good at that. And this time around, to Velila's point, here's someone who's literally gone beyond what any South African coach has done. And yet their mum leaving it to everyone else to celebrate this accolade when it should be the highest body. I mean, in ways, it kind of speaks to the dilemma that we have as a country when the top body can't even recognize this coach, and you're looking to that top body to put the best coaches towards the youngsters. I mean, it just smacks of a lot of inefficiencies all around.
Yeah, well, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, because if I don't, for me, it's embarrassing. But I do know that they've recently had a few staff members leave Safa. So maybe it was that person's responsibility and they forgot. Because that's the only reason. Because the truth is that, like Vilile said, Pitso was a huge part of Safa for 6-7 years. First as assistant coach with Bafana. And then, I mean, actually, if you can even go back further than that. But I mean, in high-profile jobs, and he really should be celebrated by everybody. And we listen. It's also a week. We learned about a change in the Bafana squad this weekend through Amazulu, where we really should have learned about it through Safa as well. So maybe somebody's job, maybe somebody's left their job or taken a password with them or something, because they really should have let something out by now. Most of the clubs who were Pitso's opposition have congratulated him. You would expect the national organization to follow suit.
No, for sure. And following on that is the news of Cavin Johnson, who, is pretty much heralded as one of the top coaches in South Africa, especially from a youth development perspective. He's had stints, and I've always kind of felt that, maybe with the last few especially, not given enough time to turn things around. I mean, he's a youth-centric coach in a results-driven league where, you're not going to get the opportunity, Stavej, to see things through as far as developing players is. What do you think Coach Pitso has seen in Coach Cavin to rope him in as his assistant?
This one is very interesting because, look, last week, I have it in court authority that Rulani had initially agreed to go with Coach Pitso.
Yeah.
But obviously, he got some convincing, and I think he also had a meeting with the Sundowns president as well. So that's where he also changed his mind, and I think it's now history that he's also a joint coach at the Sundowns with Manqoba. And then Coach Pitso had to, because it's important when you go to that kind of an environment, it's important to also have your own assistant coach, you know, because you get the local assistant and then you get your own assistant coach who's going to help you in terms of implementing your philosophy and everything that you have to implement, you know. And it made sense because the understanding also is that even before Coach Rulani returned to Sundowns, there was always this expectation that because this is not the first North African offer to have come for Pitso. There was another one, which I understand came from Morocco. Now during, I think just before we went to the bubble around June, you know. So there's always been that possibility of him moving to North Africa, and the expectation of Coach Rulani returning to be with him at Sundowns was also that they would go together, you know. But there's nothing wrong in being ambitious, for the main seat, and something which has now happened with him. So after saying that the option of Rulani is not working, I understand that Coach Pitso has been looking at other local candidates. And there are others that I cannot mention here, just to,
Why not?
to manage information again.
Don't tell anyone, don't worry.
No. Especially not that we're live, eh? if maybe we're recording, I was not going to say anything. Eh?
Talk about later. But now, we got the juicy bits.
Yeah.
Come so we can guess.
No,
we can guess.
Let me ask this. Out of the people that he wanted to take, that before he landed up with Cavin, were some of them employed, and maybe that's why he couldn't take them, and that's what made Cavin easy to take because he's been unemployed since Amazulu? Is that part of the reasoning?
No, I always think that Coach Kevin was always on his list, part of his list, you know. But it would also depend on who he was going to take first. But obviously, some of the candidates that he wanted, as you say, are currently committed elsewhere. Okay. Young and fresh as well, you know. But look, he's got a perfect candidate in Coach Kevin. Coach Kevin played against Ahly, I think that was back in 2008, 2009, and did very well against him. I think
game.
Yes. You know, so did very well against them, and Coach Kevin has taken a team to the group stages of the CAF Champions League. In fact, CAF Confed. I mean, the experience of the man goes back to the mid-90s, you know, in terms of that talent factory, School of Excellence. He was there. He set up the academy at Ajax Cape Town. He set up the academy at Sundowns, at Platinum Stars. He's sat on the bench as the assistant at Sundowns. He's been a head coach at Platinum Stars, at Supersport United, at Amazulu. I mean, okay, Black Leopards most recently. So in terms of the experience, I think for me, he's got a perfect candidate. I know that initially he wanted some young candidates at first, but I think it's a blessing in disguise that he's ended up with a matured coach like Coach Kevin. But also for me, it's good to see South African coaches working together like this, you know, and especially going outside the country, you know. And also Coach Kevin and Coach Pitso are coaches who are very much alike in terms of the brand of football that they like as well, you know. So this is where, for me, it's a like for like this move, and so I thought I should just give you this short picture of the story.
Okay, Rob. I mean, when Velile kind of rattles off all those accolades from Coach Cavin, you kind of think to yourself and salivate at the prospect of this being a long-term project for him to kind of, use that experience in setting up development structures to the benefit of Al Ahly. And so, you're hoping that the whole entire project and the whole entire team get enough time to carry things out. Are we seeing or sensing a sense of a different approach from what are usually trigger-happy clubs when it comes to hiring and firing coaches? But it just seems that this outlay to get so many people from SA to go over there, you just think to yourself there might be a bit of a more long-term experiment on the cards here.
Well, I think if it's successful, yes. The thing is, with a lot of other countries, and I mean, a lot of our clubs in South Africa, if there is disappointment, it does mean that 4 South Africans will be heading home very quickly. But the thing is that I actually think it's a bit of a dream team with Pitso and Cavin, kind of the way Pitso and Manqoba were. These Cavin and Manqoba are both coaches. They're head coaches. They're guys who could lead most probably any club in South Africa. And I like the idea of brains like that working together. One of my biggest problems when I encounter people in football in South Africa over the past decade or so has been egos. So when I see 2 brains working together like that, I can only think it's a good thing. And I actually think Cavin will complement Pitso very nicely. I've obviously known Cavin for a few years. He's smart. He's calm, which is a great thing to have as an assistant. And he is, like Vanessa said, he's somebody who plays a very similar brand of football, has just often had to not play it with a team as good as maybe that Pitso's had. So this is what I'm really interested to see, is how these guys cope with a first-class team. Because, I think Al Ahly's got half the Egyptian national players. So, it's a good team. And rumor has it that they want to add players to that squad. They may even come shopping on this side of the continent.
Well, I'm glad you took us there, because let's go there in terms of who, besides technical personnel on the pitch, who's being, and really, I hope you know about that setting where you can switch off your mentions, right? Because story again, you give us a soundbite. But essentially, I mean, it's going to be a bit of I told you so in terms of the names being bandied about to go to Al Ahly, with Coach Pitso being head coach there. And one of the names kind of being rumored is of one Samir Nurkovic. And another player also in the talks on the same breath is Kama Billiard. Both players from a team that Pitso played against, not South Africans in this instance, but they seem to be priorities as far as acquisitions are concerned. Velile, what do you have for us? What's that? Your screen is just white. We can't see.
Are you waving a flag?
No, it's people in Egypt and around the continent who continue to talk about Serino. And and I keep on telling these people, Al Ahly must forget about Serino. I don't think the Sundowns president, especially after having lost Coach Pitso in the manner in which he lost him, will be open to selling Serino to Al Ahly. And I know, I mean, since last week, as soon as they got the confirmation that Coach Pitso was coming, most people in Egypt have been asking me about Serino. And now there are even people, including one of the people who's started, when did you talk about Nurkovic? I'm coming to the issue of Nurkovic. Because when I mentioned the issue of Nurkovic a few weeks ago, it was like, oh, Velile is mad again. It's fine.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. They call us gossipers, eh? Okay, interesting. So I understand that Coach Pitso definitely wants Serino, okay? Al Ahly wants Serino. I mean, the Al Ahly fans in Egypt, they really like Serino. But you must understand. You must understand how these things operate, you know, because at Sundowns, especially the Sundowns president, definitely not happy. And also, remember previously, there's always been interest in Sundowns players from Zamalek, from Ahly. Sundowns, they've always had that policy that they will never sell their best players to another African team, you know, who will give them, because they compete in the same space.
For sure.
They compete in the Champions League, you know. So, but it's easier now. So one of the strongest link currently, and everyone from Egypt has been asking me, especially in the last 2 days and in the last 4 hours, about Serino. Serino, I don't see Sundowns selling Serino to another African team.
Yeah.
Or especially Ahly, where they've just lost their top coach. You know, so the sooner that gets into their ears, the better. Because, because remember, they wanted Dodi, they wanted Kama, they wanted Castro, you know, and they couldn't get them.
Yeah.
You know, and Coach Pitso was still with Sundowns back then. You know.
So now Nurkovic.
And no. The issue of Nurkovic started even before Coach Pitso. When I was talking about Nurkovic getting offers here, Nurkovic, Ahly, I think they were looking for a striker, and Nurkovic was offered to Ahly, you know.
Offered? By who?
By, obviously, it's agents who push these things, you know.
Just to clarify.
Yes. And obviously, yes. And I think the agent gathered, or maybe was in touch with people at Chiefs to see that there was the appetite for the deal, you know, if the money is good. You understand? There was the appetite for the deal. But now you must also understand that Ahly has also, they've always wanted a Kama billiard as well, you know. So don't be surprised that it's not just Nurkovic, but also Kama that they want. And as much as the issue of the transfer ban talks about registering of players, not selling of players, you understand? So you can sell players, but is Chiefs in the right position currently? And I think context, Fidel, when you cut this thing, because, hey, your people here, they like to. Context is key. You know?
Context is key.
I think
So yes, the money could be good, especially if you consider that Chiefs could be asking for 2 million USD or 2 million euro for Nurkovic, and maybe even for Kama as well. When you put that money together, I think that's more than 50 M, you know? But is that what they want?
Sure.
Currently.
And the thing you also have to consider is this also disrupts the players. You know, the fact is that, you know, if I'm sitting at a club and I hear that somebody wants me, they could be paying more, I might not be that happy at a club. So just to play devil's advocate, sometimes clubs sell players because they can make a profit, but also because the player has now become unsettled. And certain players we know, when they're unsettled, can be disruptive to squads. And we've had that in the past with someone like Kama, you know, where the focus, even when he wasn't playing, the focus was on him. So, I mean, maybe, you know, you might find, like, if I was Chiefs, the billiard offer is one I might consider before Nurkovic.
Right.
Yeah. And also, I think if you consider the fact that billiard, I think his contract is coming to an end next year, but Chiefs also does have an option. But in terms of getting something meaningful out of him, I don't think there's any better time than now, you know. So I think what is the difficult part for Chiefs now is the issue of the transfer ban, you know, because yes, you can get the money back, but if you are not going to spend the money and balance the squad, you know, because with the money, if they can sell the two players, they can make a lot of money to even buy 3 or 4 new players, and still make profit out of that. But is that what they want now? Remember, they also go to the Champions League as well. So can you afford to lose your top 2 attackers? Because these are their top 2 attackers currently. You know, so it's a difficult and maybe we must talk when there's an offer, because I don't think there's an offer yet from Ahly. It's something that is still being pushed by agents.
Okay. I also got a lot of WhatsApps about Sereno. So there's definitely interest that side. You know, people asking about him and asking for his phone number. I don't know if the journalists want to speak to him from Egypt to convince him. And you know, the thing is that what Rulani said about Sundowns is true. I mean, I don't know if you've heard, they've signed a few players this season, Sundowns. So they could technically afford to sell Sereno, but they don't want to, and they shouldn't, to who is technically one of their main rivals in the Champions League. And I think while a lot of those players would love to join Pitso in Egypt, I think Sundowns might be the hardest place to buy from at the moment, even though they've got 13 new faces at their training ground. Well, 13 that I know of. There could be a lot of other new faces.
No, for sure. And I guess the trick now is to get those players integrated as best as possible. What do we make of this duopoly, I guess, the 2 head coaches, joint head coaches with Manqoba, kind of, you know, if it was a percentage thing, he's sitting on 51% and Rulani on 49%. What do we make of that appointment? I mean, it's a strange one. We don't get to see joint coaching teams that often. Is this a move in the right direction, you think?
Look, it's not something new at Sundowns. They've done it before. And maybe the current president at Sundowns is looking at the fact that this has happened under his reign. I think that was back in 2006 when I saw Miguel Gamondi and Nurkovic appointed as joint head coaches, and they went on to win the league title that season. But we'll be the first to say a lot has changed. You know, that was 14 years ago. So now This is 2020. So a lot has changed when you compare what is happening now and what happened back then, and the dynamics of the teams, the dynamics of the squad as well, and also having just lost a big coach like Coach Pitso, you know. I think everyone has also been looking at that line that when there's no consensus, the voice of Coach Manqoba takes prominence, you know. So I think that is a very interesting line, that one. But look, I think if you look at the proximity to the new season, how close we are to the new season,
yes,
and where Sundowns is coming from, to bring in a coach from outside was going to be disruptive. And remember, Sundowns, before Coach Pitso, they were not very good with coaching appointments, you know? So it's not a decision that you can just take. So I think for me, this is the best decision which has been taken, to go for coaches who've been there, who will bring continuity. They've also been involved in terms of the recruitment of the players who are being signed now, a whole new squad that they are signing, but also taking into consideration that they've got an aging team as well, you know. But now all eyes, because I think Sundowns is now sitting on 44 or 45 players. So the next thing that has to happen this week, because the program is starting next week after the international week. So they have to release players. And I don't think Sundowns can afford to release less than 10 players from their current squad, you know, because the squad, yes, has to be manageable, firstly, and it's got to be competitive, obviously, you know. So, but also there must be a sense of, how can I put it? Continuity, you know. There must be a sense of continuity, and I think for me, if you're asking me if I'm comfortable with the issue of joint coaches, yeah, I felt maybe Manqoba should have just been the head coach.
Right. Yeah. That makes more sense to me. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it might have even something to, I mean, we obviously guessing, but I think it might have something to do with Rulani being offered the Al Ahly job, is to to add a bit of a carrot to keep him, because it does make sense to have made Manqoba the head coach. But the truth is that in modern football these days, there are a lot of technical teams that are very much partnerships. I've actually met a lot of assistant coaches who were kind of more the head coach, and or I should say fulfilled certain roles, and while the head coach fulfilled others. And if it's balanced properly, it can be a very effective thing. The difficulty comes in team selection. I struggle to pick 11 players sometimes as myself. If you give me 15 names, now you've got two voices there. Also, those sorts of, but those are problems that they're going to have to overcome. And it is something that can also, the fact is that sometimes head coaches feel a lot of pressure, and having somebody next to you can actually relieve some of that as well. So for me, it's an experiment that is either going to work well or it's not going to work at all. I go back to what I said earlier as well. It's also going to depend on egos. Are both coaches going to do post-match together? Are they going to finish each other's sentences? Are they going to, is one going to do pre-match, one going to do post-match? You see, there's a lot of things that I'm not 100% sure, because sometimes you say it's a joint coach, but if I'm a 51% owner in a business, I'm the majority shareholder, and I'm actually the boss. And and as we've learned, majority shareholders can sell clubs sometimes without minority shareholders' permission. Yeah. So is Manqoba actually the head coach, or are they a partnership? And that's what we're going to find out over the coming weeks, I think.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's going to be interesting. Probably more interesting for the new players who've joined the ship. I mean, in just the recent couple of days, you're seeing the likes of Kermit Erasmus joining, Kuliso Mudau from Black Leopards also joining the mix, confirmation of the likes of Goss and Mahaman. I mean, the revolution is clearly underway. Aubrey Modiba as well. Yeah, I mean, it's just so many players coming in. I wonder how many of them will feel aggrieved by the change at the top, or do you think a lot of them will take heart from the fact that they're coming into a club that has a philosophy, that has a way of playing, that sees 2 out of the 3 technical teams still there as far as the coaches are concerned, who kind of divvy up what happens out on the pitch? How many of these players will feel, not so sure about this now because the guy who made me come here, or the one that I thought I was coming here to be with, is no longer the head coach, Rob?
Yes, but I think the issue is that in terms of the program, in terms of the program, you also have the 2 co-coaches. They've been part of the program, especially Coach Manqoba. He's always been there, and if you understand the Sundowns technical team very well, they do things together, even in terms of assembling the team or who must go. I remember Coach Pitso, even with River doing so well, playing in the midfield. Coach Pitso would praise Coach Manqoba, and he would say this was Coach Manqoba's idea, that they should try River in the midfield, So it tells you that, yes, you must understand that Coach Pitso is more of, is a manager, understand? He's a manager type, like say Alex Ferguson, when he had other assistant coaches, including Carlos Quiroz, that's how they work. So I don't foresee a situation where most of the ideas or how the model works at Sundowns, that everything now, Coach Pitso has left with everything. if you understand what I mean, Rob. So, yes, the new signings, they were also Coach Pitso's idea, but before they came or they concluded on the list, he would have run that through with his assistants, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, and I think it's that nice little situation as well, where first of all they're joining Sundowns. While in some countries coaches do sign players and players do sometimes go join a coach, it's not a case where these players have worked with Pitso before at another club and come to join, which sometimes you see around the world. Right. You know, they were joining Sundowns. Pitso was the head coach. I've spoken to one or two of the players. Yes, they were excited to work with Pitso, but they also could be equally excited to know that Pitso is moving on up. You know, maybe Pitso takes them to Egypt one day. Maybe Pitso moves away from Egypt by getting a nice job in Europe, and now those players are on his radar. So sometimes, you know, I think there will be a disappointment, certainly with some of the players. But I do think for a lot of them, it is joining the club. It's just the difficulty is that for some of them might be if they thought they were being signed by Pitso for the first team, they might not be that sure if they're going to be in the team this time. You know, they might not get that. You know, are they going to be? You know, Pitso might have said to somebody, if you come here, you're going to be competing for this spot. Now, these coaches might have a different idea for that player. You know, also when you've signed 13 players and you already have a championship squad, you know you're going to have to compete. And maybe it's sometimes easier to impress a new coaching staff than the guy who selected the team previously, because Pitso may have always fallen back on the guy that he could trust if you didn't give it in, where maybe some of the new guys, maybe Manqoba and Rulani have slightly different ideas. You know, that's going to be interesting to see. I'm interested to see their first, you know, last week we spoke about how at the MTN8, there's a good chance that they would just carry on that same team. Maybe it's not going to be like that anymore. You know, maybe the guys who impressed this week are going to be in the team.
Maybe. I guess, yeah, it does open us up to a new era as far as the personnel and the decisions are. Are we going to see a continuation, like you say, of what Coach Pitso did? Or are we going to see these two gentlemen kind of put their own fingerprint on this new look, Mamelodi Sundowns, or in big parts, new look? Let's talk about, in terms of this, you know, upcoming Bafana Bafana friendlies that are on the way. I mean, of course, some of the news today will be around the fact that the jersey was launched. We'll get to that in a moment's time. But what do we make of a couple of debutants in the mix? You got the likes of Tibang Pete. Kurt Abrahams was a name that we hadn't known about until last week for a lot of people. Lebo Manyama is in, but as a striker, with the coach Mulifinseki saying that we want to give him a go there. I mean, you know, so many interesting kind of permutations from the squad selection. Let's start with you, Rob. What do you make of it in terms of the players that he's brought on board? Is it in line with what he's been saying about trying to refresh the squad? I mean, I'm excited to see how it all pans out, if just out of curiosity, if anything.
Yeah, and just to add, unfortunately, Kurt Abrahams won't be coming. Westerlo had COVID at their club, and unfortunately, I think the whole club went into quarantine. And it's now been confirmed that Sinatemba Sitebe from Amazulu has replaced him in the squad, who's another uncapped player.
Right.
For me, look, we did touch on this briefly when we thought, you know, that it is a case that this is the only time he's going to have to experiment with such a busy schedule. And it's again, I'm always the guy who trusts the coach if he delivers. You know, so this is what Malefi has said. He's brought in some interesting ones. You know, like some of the uncapped players. If we just look at them, someone like Gladwin Shatolo at 31 years old. That's an interesting one, because I know he's been part of youth development, youth sides, international sides in the past, but it is also a situation where he's 31 years old. So it kind of goes against what we thought was going to happen with some of those players. But then again, like I said to you, that I'd like someone like Surprise Rulani in the team. Maybe it gives Surprise a chance in the future. Even Satebe is 27 years old. Ricardo Goss is uncapped. That's an interesting one because I think if you look at the goalkeepers, you've got two experienced goalkeepers, but they only have 12, 13 caps each. So they've played backup for most of their career. So right. Goss might come in and really challenge them because neither Ronwin or Darren have ever really cemented that we're number one. I think Pete is a very interesting one. I'll be honest, I've only ever seen him play as a midfielder, and he's now shifted to defense over the past few years. So I'm very interested to see that. It looks like he's looking for a centre-back partner for Tulani Klatshwayo and going to experiment, maybe play Medisho one game, maybe Pete. I don't know, maybe we're playing 45 minutes each. Yeah. You know, with friendlies, you're never quite sure. Manyama, I'm excited about. Manyama, when Manyama came to the attention of Ajax Cape Town all those years ago, he was actually playing striker for Alex United. They put him up front. He just scored goals. And then they moved him back at Ajax, and that's kind of where he's played since. But when he has played a forward role, which he did kind of for Cape Town City in their counter-attack formation a lot of the time, I think he's quite effective. You know, he's a good finisher, and he makes space for himself. And I'm again, having seen Manyama over the years, I actually think it's not a bad idea. I'm also, but I do think Kermit's going to be his number one striker. Sure. I think Molefi's made it. I think it's a good thing as well. I think Molefi's made it. I think that's how Kermit excels when you tell him he's number one, and let him challenge himself rather than having to think about having to usurp a player in the team. Whenever somebody's done that to him, he's actually scored goals and performed well. The problem is when he's not playing. I'm very interested to see how the team plays. He's got a very attacking, goal-scoring midfield, and then he's got Andile Jali. So a couple of guys, a hard man in the middle, and a whole bunch of attacking, really guys who are. I know he's only got like 2 strikers in the squad, but when you add Luther Singh, Percy Tau, Themba Zwane, that whole bunch up front, they all got goals in them.
Okay, David, your scorecard for Mr. Ntsegi's squad selection for the upcoming friendlies?
Yeah, I was just checking some of the comments that I see. Khomutso Maluleka is talking about Manyama, and he's saying he knows that a class is permanent and form is temporary, but I think he's referring to the bubble. And I think, when you refer to the bubble, you will even forget that Andile Jali has had a great season. Because the bubble was what? At most was just eight matches, or 9 matches, or 11 matches for Sundowns, But if you look at the football that Manyama was playing, I remember here at Fran, we had our midfielders of the season. It was around April. Manyama was there, Andile Jali was there, and Mshishi was there as well, So I don't like us looking just in the context of the bubble only, Yes, sometimes it's all about it's not how you start, it's also how you finish.
Right.
In as far as winning is concerned. But when it comes to performance, the evaluation should be looking broadly, But just back to the point that you mentioned, it's interesting. It's interesting what Coach. I'm being distracted because they're around this building where I am as well, Yeah, it's interesting what Coach Molefi said last week when he announced the squad. And I feel for me, this has always been my gripe because I felt that this is where we regressed a bit under Coach Stuart Baxter. That the group which went to the 2016 Rio Olympics, was not fast-tracked to the senior team, you know? And now, if you look at Thabiso Kutumela, you look at Ricardo Goss, you look at Mtobi Mvala, you look at even Tibang Pete, for that matter, you know? You look at a number of some of these players. These were players who either went to the Olympics or were part of the squad which was supposed to go to the Olympics. And it's only now that they are making it to the senior team. And yes, maybe also because they are playing regularly, you know. But something happened there where we failed to do this. And also, so he did say last week that, and remember, you don't test players during the AFCON qualifiers, eh? You don't test players. Yeah. So that's why you must not cry for Bradley Grobler, because we've got AFCON qualifiers next month. Sure. But this is what, if you remember, Coach Shakes used to do things like this. This is what you do when it comes to international friendly matches. Right. You test all your players, you test your combinations, and if, okay, because you've got 2 matches, 180 minutes of football. So if you've got a 23-man squad, almost each and every player is going to get the chance to play, right? And then when you make the selection for the AFCON qualifiers, because for the international program next year, there is no space for international friendlies. Coach Molefi Ntseki will not have another chance to test players. Sure. So in terms of whitening his pool, this is the right time. And look, I think I learned this during Coach Gordon Hassan's time. When it comes to Bafana Bafana selection, we will never be happy, because even if now the 3 of us here, I would say, let's put down which team I would like. There will be 5 to 6 different, you know, so different names in terms of the squad. So for the squad which has been selected, and for the purpose that the coach explained in the press conference, I think I'm happy with that. Okay. You know, I'm happy with that. Because what is important for me, Bafana must qualify to the AFCON. Bafana must qualify to the World Cup. But I'm not sure if we are strong enough to be one of the top 5 teams on the continent.
You know, just to add to what Velile said there, a lot of the guys who we talked about 5 uncapped, but a lot of the guys who actually do have caps, they have COSAFA Cup caps, Chan caps, you know, someone or a bunch of friendlies. They actually are, they didn't actually, you know, some of the guys made their debuts in 2016 for Bafana, and that's the last time they played.
Right.
And so we over the past few years, we have failed those players a bit. I look at some of the young guys in the squad like Tebogo Mokoena and Reef Russler, and while they are our future, they are also our present. And they should have been our past a bit more as well, because, you know, they've shown at club level. I'm all for pushing youth development and getting young guys into the national team. But for me, you have to prove yourself at club level first. I don't want to see some guy who might have been a star at Amajita, but has never played against a man before, thrown into Bafana. But Tebogo Mokoena has proved at Supersport that he's a quality footballer. Reef Russler's proved at Wits and now at Chiefs that he is a quality footballer. And those are the type of young guys we want in the team. And I think players like Mobara, a bunch of the guys, Luther Singer, who's only really played COSAFA Cup, it feels like he's played more for Bafana. Thabiso Kutumela, who won the COSAFA Cup with Rivaldo as captain. And on paper, his Bafana record is 3 caps, 2 goals. So he looks like, but the thing is, we should have been able to see more of him in other games. So it's very interesting to see. Again, these are 2 friendlies. What I'm interested to see is what works this time around and what Molefi can take to November, because that is what this is about. Yeah. You know, is Andile Jali and Tebogo Mokoena the answer in the midfield? It could be. We've never seen them play together before. Yeah. That could be the great combination that changes everything for us. So there's a lot I'm interested to see. I hope we get good results in these games too, so that doesn't distract from the experiments that he's doing. Yeah. Because sometimes over the past, what's happened is we've played friendlies, we've lost a friendly, and then fans and media have given the poor Bafana coach a hard time. And that coach is not going to try anything again, because everything shouldn't count.
Yeah, okay. I just think that sometimes we're too club orientated in our football in South Africa, and sometimes, like I've said here previously, you can feel and you can see the impact of how we were secluded from international football. Yeah. That it's always the club first. I know that maybe we don't have a big name, Bafana push. Maybe that's what also people have got issues with. But the national team is the reflection of our club football.
Sure.
Sure. We will not have a Bafana of world beaters if our football, club football, is not strong as well. Of course. Of course. So as much as, because international week is international week, all these other countries, in West Africa, in North Africa, most of them, where are they playing now? They are playing in Europe. And you know why they are playing in Europe? Because most of their players are in Europe. Mm-hmm. Our players are here. Mm-hmm. So at some stage, the fans must also understand that the national team is as good as our club football.
Right. But then what happens when you have agents dissuading players from going overseas? I mean, the recent comments from Jasmine saying that it's overrated to go play there.
Yeah,
that surely can't be helpful to the cause
look, I mean, in Jasmine's defense, I think he was... Sometimes you talk about a player near the end of their career and you start thinking about them as a human being. And you start thinking about their family, and you're moving an entire family across, and maybe you can make more money at home. But that's the only case scenario is Shaba in his late 30s. Maybe it made more financial sense. And then he still went, The truth is that you are only as good as who you are playing against. And the sooner you're playing against good opposition, the quicker you're going to improve. I'll use somebody who's in the squad as an example, because I'm a huge fan of Abubakar Mabara. Having watched him since he was a teenager, I've seen him play at 100% once in his life, because he's had to, against Brazil at the Olympics when he marked Neymar. He rose his game. He never has to do that here, because the opposition that he's playing against is not strong, I don't want to say it's not strong, but he doesn't have to give his all when he's defending. But if he had been in Europe when he was 19 years old, having to mark Neymar's every week, his game level would be at a much higher standard. And so, sure, financially, sometimes going overseas is not beneficial. But if you want to improve as a footballer...
No. You see, we must have ambitious players.
That's it.
Yes, we must have ambitious players, but also maybe we must agree that talent-wise, we've not done enough in terms of producing top talent. But also, remember, with some of the African players who move overseas, they don't just go straight into the top 5 leagues. They go to your Kosovo leagues. They go to your Belgian leagues. They go to Ukraine. I mean, I'm talking about players like Yaya Toure here. I'm talking about Michael Essien. I'm talking about a number of these players. They go to Turkey, and then they get spotted there. You must also watch the pattern of what is happening now with our girls from Banyana Banyana. Some of the countries that they moved to Finland, but now you've got Spanish teams taking them up, But now the issue of having a stronger PSL financially, it then means that PSL for instance, Andy Lejali coming back, he comes back to earn 2-3 times more what he was getting in Belgium here locally.
So what
you understand?
You have to go back there, yeah.
So that's why it becomes better to ship them out early, once they're still young. And this is what has been happening now. But I was looking at something today, and I felt, yes, I see. But this boy was playing in the PSL, but there in what's this country in Portugal? I think he's playing in the third tier. And I'm like, ish, I'm not happy. This is not progress, because we're talking about someone who's already playing the PSL. Right. He's got 220 World Cups. He's got an under-17 World Cup, and the time is going, So that's why you see someone like Thabo possibly coming back, because it's all good to be overseas, but we must see progress. You understand? Yeah. And we must get to a stage where we need to have at least four players of Bafana Bafana playing in either Italy.
Hello, I think we lost the bit there.
Visa froze. I'm sure he was going to say Italy, Spain, Germany, and England.
Yes, exactly.
That's where we want to see them.
3 or 4, for sure. I mean, how much confidence can these players have taking to the pitch in their new Le Coq Sportif jersey, Rob? Are you going to be clamoring to get one? Just to let you know, no, we didn't cut you off. You were frozen for a little bit. Frozen again. Yes.
You know what? I need to see what it looks like on, because
I'm actually watching someone now wearing the white jersey.
Not bad.
It's not bad. especially when I see it on a player.
Yes.
Yeah. No. Not bad. Okay. I saw the yellow jersey yesterday.
Yeah.
Yes. It's okay.
I've always had.
Yeah, but look, my thinking around this issue of Le Coq Sportif is that they offered Safa money.
For sure.
And I don't think Nike was going to give Safa money. And what does Safa need currently?
Money. Chankura. Yes,
for me, it's all about the badge. I've seen some terrible strips in my lifetime. But when they played good football in those terrible strips, I didn't care about the strip, and I'd wear it proudly. I've seen some beautiful strips and some terrible football. So look, I get why people are unhappy. But the fact is that if we start performing well, things improve, and our clothes will improve too. It's something that's very sad that's happened to Bafana over the years, is that we've even had to fight to find people to make our strips. Some countries, it's the pride of those manufacturing companies that they love to release the new international strip. We are not one of them. They're groundbreaking stuff. Yeah. I mean, Ivory Coast. I think of some of the Cote d'Ivoire kits over the years.
Ghana today just released a new one with Puma. It's looking fresh. But you're right. We don't have that, where the tech sponsors are clamoring and falling all over themselves to provide us with a sponsorship. And
no. Let me tell you, Safa still had the option of Nike, and I think they had the option of Puma as well. But I'm not sure if
those guys were willing to put some money in.
Yes.
And I think if we have a few stars, it'll help.
Yeah,
because the fact is we've got Percy, who can wear the strip at the moment, and anyone will know who he is.
But I think the issue is the package, because shirt sponsors, they've changed the model on how they're doing things. If you are not really in the World Cup, I mean, you are not even in the top 50 in the world, they're not going to come and give you a mega money deal,
For sure.
Yes. So and also I think we must accept that Bafana Bafana is not in a very good position to be attracting financial or good corporate partners currently, So I think this was the situation with the sponsor. I remember they are sponsoring Cameroon, and they're also sponsoring Sampdoria, So I think for me, more than just about how the jersey looks, the issue today was about how Le Coq Sportif, the new sponsors, were allowed by Safa to launch the kit like they did in a hockey field. That was poor PR. That was poor marketing.
It's terrible.
In this day and age, it's like they used the phone to shoot that thing.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. When I saw the ad, I was like, "Who is this player?" Because that's how I expect a strip to be unveiled. And I was like, "This is the first time I'm not recognizing."
And also, for that matter, I don't know why they need to rush. They've got players. They've got players. Players came into camp last night. Do something with the players. Shoot the players wearing the jersey. Is that too much to ask for?
Someone was cutting a check there. It doesn't make sense. The lack of, authenticity, like you say, on a hockey field with no known players in sight, and we're supposed to rush out and wear this thing with pride and joy. Come on.
Maybe somebody...
For a moment, I thought it was Kurt Abrahams, and I didn't know what he looked like. And I was like, no, but he's too old.
Oh, there we go.
But maybe somebody had to eat on that tender.
That's always the case, unfortunately, when it's things like this. Very quickly, on the last topic of the day, we finally saw a club being sold in the right and correct fashion. Amazulu will remain Amazulu. It will stay KZN. It's so ridiculous that I have to say that. But Chairman Patrick Sokela finally overseeing the sale to the Zungu investment company headed by Sandile Zungu. So refreshing to kind of see a story where Stavesh, they're saying, listen, we can't manage health complications as well. We're going to hand over this brand that is synonymous with our province and the people of the province to someone who's going to carry that on.
Look, after 16 years of running the club, and looking at the situation that the coach was having, the situation that the Sokelas were going through as well. And remember, they also had they were in partnership with SPA as well. I think the Okonos. And if you remember, when the bubble started, in fact, when lockdown started, Amazulu were one of the first clubs to come out to say they will be cutting some their salaries, Yeah. So yes. So financial issues at the club have always been there, but I think for me, when Dr. Sokola mentioned the issue of his health, and we've always seen it firsthand. Sometimes some of the guys of our colleagues who've been covering Amazulu, So I think that was very serious. And I was not entirely surprised because I think it was around February this year when I caught the wind that the Zungus could be interested in going this route, but they were always monitoring the issue of relegation because once the team gets relegated, it becomes another issue. So, but when they came on board, I thought maybe they were just going to buy maybe a majority stake at the club. Yeah. But I think when you listen to Mr. Sandile Zungu, who is not just any businessman, but is a black business council president, when you listen to him, he's got a vision for the club and he knows his football very well. There's another campaign that they were doing a few months ago, and I got to be closer and I saw how they were doing things around it, So he's a football man through and through. If you listen to him, a Pagania at heart, Interestingly, his brother Manzini is a Kosi at heart. And they were both there on the day, Yeah. So listening to them, it's exactly what you would expect when a move like this happens. That they will keep. But also you get to see the importance of Isilo, King Zulitini, to this brand and to this club. Because even Mr. Zungu had to go and ask for his blessing, and even for Dr. Sokela, for him to hand over, he agreed, and this was anointed by Isilo, So the tradition around this club, so for me, I think this was one of the beautiful stories when it comes to, because we are still going to see a lot of clubs selling statuses, because COVID-19 has affected a lot of business people around the country, and football is not an exception to this.
For sure.
It's not selling a status in the Amazulu thing. It's you're buying a club. And,
the change of ownership.
When you fly into Durban, it says on that big sign, "Home of Amazulu." You can't. The Zungus bought into a brand, and that's the difference between one or two of the other franchises, is that they hadn't built a real. I mean. The one that I'm still saddest about is probably Bidvest Wits, because I did feel like it was a brand, or Wits University was a brand that could have been built more. So that's sad. But a lot of the times when you see these franchises being sold, it's a club that's existed for 2-3 years. Yes, Highlands Park is Highlands Park, but it's not Highlands Park that has been around since the 60s. So it was a rebirth, and I think Amazulu is one of those clubs who it's so intrinsically part of KZN that I've always and you know how much talent there is in KZN and comes from KZN. When you look at the clubs, I always thought that they should be one of the top performing clubs as well. So it's going to be an interesting thing to see, because he also seems to be very ambitious. Setting. I think he said he wants to win the league within 4 years, or challenge for the league within 4 years. And the truth is that if you look at the talent that comes from KZN, they could do that if they can hang on to it. But it's also about what happens now. Is Amazulu going to be a feeder for the other clubs, or how do they attract a better level of player? Because if he wants to be honest with himself, they haven't looked like a team that could win the league in the past 4 years. So that's what I'm interested to now see what the Zungus bring.
Okay, no, for sure. I mean, like I say, it's just nice to see it done in the right spirit, done with everybody from Isilo down to all the supporters kind of being considered, and their emotions and attachment to a club being taken into consideration. Very quickly, the MTN 8 quarterfinal fixtures have popped up. It is TTM versus SuperSport United on the Saturday, with Pirates versus Cape Town City later that evening. And of course, on the next day, Kaizer Chiefs against Maritzburg United and Mamelodi Sundowns in action against Bloem Celtic. So that's what it looks like.
It's a week before these games. Who is coaching TTM?
We don't know. They're coaching them.
And how many players are they getting from Sundowns? Sign-downs.
Oh, hey, sign-downs.
How many players are they getting from sign-downs? Sign-downs.
At least it's quite a while away, so we're going to meet again before it happens, and hopefully by then there'll be some clarity as to who the coach of TTM is, and who some of the transfers that have come and gone are. It's going to be very interesting. We're all going to go check out what's happening now as far as Europe is concerned, with their transfer window slamming shut later. But before that, thank you, gents, once again, for your thoughts and impressions. Rob, on YouTube, they want to know what's happened to that logo that's in the background. As far as, like, why is it not on the jerseys anymore?
That's actually a good question. Is it no longer the Bafana logo at all?
And the new logo. We also have a star.
We do, for AFCON.
Yes, for AFCON, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. We also have a star.
We like our stars, yeah, man. We like our stars.
We replace the 2 stars in the background there with the 1. There we go.
How many stars does Ahly have on their jersey?
They've got remember they are on 42 league titles, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for their 4 legitimas, 40. So they've got 4 stars here at the top. Each one representing 10 trophies, 10 trophies, 10 trophies.
Right.
And then here, I've got the jersey, so I was wearing it yesterday. Felt proud yesterday wearing that jersey and watching my coach sitting on the bench, you know. And then here at the bottom, they've got the 8 Champions League stars.
Okay.
The Egyptian national team has got the 7 stars for winning the AFCON 7 times.
Right.
So you know what? So
we have a long way to go.
Yeah, but then again, we're only readmitted to international football in 1992. You know, sometimes we forget that, and sometimes in other areas of our administration, you can see that we're babies at this thing. Yeah.
And it's going to take a long time for one of our clubs to win 42 league titles. If they survive long enough and aren't sold and renamed.
We're ending on such a high note, Rob. We have to drag it down there. Folks, thank you so much. Really appreciate you, Bo. There's Sakile Shezi. I just want to shout out Khomoto Maluleka. Who else has been on there? Yeah. Those are about all the people some of the people who have joined us on there. And of course, those on Twitter. And you'll obviously get the sound bites as they keep coming. Remember, folks, context is everything. So make sure before you are filled with rage, make sure you watch the whole podcast. That's my
exactly. Thank you, Kaizer.
Much rage as you want. Rob Delport, William Nyandu, Fidel behind the scenes, and myself, Gamzambata. We all wish you a great week ahead. Stay safe wherever you are. We'll reconvene in a week's time to talk things all Mzansi football yet again from the front runner football team. Take care.